she called us the day that the piece launched for breast cancer awareness. And she said, "Hey, I just want to say thank you. It was a great reminder for me to go get an exam, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer."
Wow.
And yes, and she said we caught it early enough, and so we have a treatment plan and everything, but that was the day that it launched. We were celebrating the launch. We were at a Mexican restaurant, and I got that call, and we were all in tears afterwards. We're like, "Oh my God."
This episode of the podcast, we were joined by Amanda Russell, co-founder of Cream Studios. She gave us some insight into the animation and motion production world and how it's changed and adapted over time. She talked about how they formed their company 10 years ago and how she sees the future of animation. We talked a little bit about video games and that kind of world, and she's actually a pretty big gamer too, which is cool. So I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share, excited to talk and learn more about you guys too, because you guys are doing some interesting things up there in New Hampshire, which I just learned you're from, and I have a cousin up there. So whenever I visit, I'm gonna come see you guys.
Yeah, you should. We got a studio
As if
here.
Everyone in New Hampshire knows each other. So
yeah,
that's
there's only 300 of us here. Just kidding. It's like when I grew up in Maine, and people were like, "Oh, what's it like? Is it all farms?" I'm like, actually, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's stores. There's Portland. There's a city.
But that's how you look at it, because it's at the top of the it's the last state there. It's like what's out there.
Makes sense. I mean,
I feel like it's so beautiful.
Virginia either.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to. Virginia, I think a lot of people they immediately think of either Virginia Beach or Williamsburg, like colonial times, which is pretty accurate. But I'm in Richmond, and we have like a good mix of like
cousins
mountains
in Richmond.
and city. Oh, so when you visit your cousins, you like how that works? That's the exchange. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you could talk a little bit about, I know that just from doing a little bit of research on your studio, there seems to be a lot of like really good community around your team. I think that's big. And so if you could talk a little bit about like how important that community is inside of your business.
Yeah, I would love to. I think, so we've been around, Cream Studio has been around for 10 years. This is our, we just hit our 10-year mark. And there are 3 owners, myself, Dave Swain, and Ruth Newberry Wilson. And we all started as animators and designers, and then kind of, morphed into or evolved into creative directors. And I think that when we first started, we didn't know a lot of other studios. There weren't a lot of other studios at the time. And so because of that, I think no one knew what they were doing. We still don't know what we're doing as owners, like everyone. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. And I think it's because motion graphics started as like a hodgepodge of, from different things. There's a lot of overlap between like production and like news broadcasts and all of that stuff. So animators of today were kind of born of like almost like editors and just kind of found their way. So because of that, we held our cards very close to our chest. Nobody knew what they were doing. And so we were like, I don't want to tell them, because like, what if they do it better? And like, they know more than I do. And like, they're going to know I'm an imposter. All of that changed, I think, over the last, 3 or 4 years. Probably, I think COVID had a lot to do with it, because we were officially, locked in our homes. And so a lot of studios started kind of reaching out to each other and leaning on each other and sharing information. And then you have other resources like Motion Hatch, which is great for freelancers, and RevThink, which is amazing for studios. And so this kind of newfound sense of community started bubbling. And I embraced it hardcore, which anyone that has probably listened to anything that I ever talk about is mostly about community, because there's so much power behind it. grew up, and this is probably off topic just a little bit, but bear with me. I grew up in a neighborhood that was not a community. We knew our neighbors, but like, whatever. As I became an adult, we kind of accidentally moved into a neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, but it's like the good kind. And I was like, damn, I think I kind of like this. Like I can reach out to my neighbors and ask them for a cup of sugar or like, the neighborly things you're supposed to do. And they'll watch my kids and stuff. So with all of that in mind, having this community within motion design, it started really like kind of crystallizing for me, like the power of it. If we all come together and we're not disjointed, we can actually make progress, like with the creative codex that's going on, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. But all of these initiatives are happening because studios and artists and like the broader community are actually deciding to come together, lean on each other, trust each other enough to share information and, push the industry along. So it's very exciting for me, even though the, economy is a little weird this year for for post and everything else.
Yeah, for production and as a whole, for sure.
It's wild, but
Yeah.
but the good news is that we're going to be stronger without a doubt after we get through this hump because we've come together and we're getting stronger and stronger and really learning from each other. And that's just it. That's where the power comes from.
Yeah, it's so important to have that community feel. Like, I think in any business, and I think it also helps your team work better if like everybody gets along. And I think that's what we
Yeah.
found too when we're filming. It's like we want people to work with us that also enjoy hanging out around us, because like at the end of the day, like you're trying to get to the same goal. And if some people are interested in this and that, it's like it doesn't go well together and you're not going to get the product that you need to get.
Exactly. And when we were all working together, when all three owners were working at different studios and production companies, like before we got together as Cream, we noticed that there was like just super competition between production studios at the time. And it was unhealthy, I think. I don't know if it's still that way, but we noticed it quite a bit on the production side. And it was a shame because like you had to feel icky when you went home. You're like, I don't know, like I don't even know these people, but I'm supposed to hate them because they're a competition.
Right.
And I didn't like that feeling. Ruth didn't like it and Dave didn't like it. So when we decided to open up Cream, we're like, no, we're going to befriend our competition. And so Hue and Cry, which was, they're an amazing studio. And they were across the street from us when we had our studio, our brick and mortar studio. We were like, let's be friends. And they were like, oh, okay. And it was somewhat unprecedented. And I think people were still acclimating to, the idea of like other studios hanging out with each other, as if we're going to steal, their talent or their ideas. But really, we just wanted to kind of commiserate in a lot of ways. And again, like kind of go home and feel good about what we're contributing to this industry. And no one feels good when they hate someone or something, like no matter what the reason. We just want to be happy with the culture that we're putting out there for our employees and for ourselves and for, everyone else within the industry.
Now, how did you guys start Cream? I know you said there was three of you. Were you guys friends? And then you were like, let's dive in, or were you all freelancing at different places or working at different places? Or
Yeah, it's a weird story. It's like I don't recommend doing what we did because it's very risky. But like I knew Ruth. We actually worked together at Media General, which is like a media hub in Richmond. And so we worked together there. We liked each other. And then we actually started like a little side hustle freelance studio called Flux Creative, which Flux, we learned later, actually means diarrhea. So
Nice.
don't do
Quickly had to
that.
change that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't
We
do
were
that.
like, wait a minute. It only lasted like 6 months and then we started Cream. So we went from Cream
I love the name
to,
Cream.
yeah,
That's really cool.
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also, we didn't realize there was like sexual undertones to that one. We were like, we cannot get this right. So
Can't
anyway,
change it
no
again
matter,
though.
yeah, yeah. But we didn't know Dave, and Dave we only knew through like hearsay because Richmond at the time was like a small community of animators. There's like 5 animators, and Dave like was the man. He had been freelancing forever. Everybody was like, "Oh, have you met Dave Swain? Like some mysterious person." I'm like, "No, like what's he like?" They're like, "He's so good." And we're like, "Okay." So then on Vimeo, back when everybody was like communicating on Vimeo, we kind of went back and forth with him, and then just like through having a couple phone conversations, we decided to tag team some projects with him. We worked really well together, and before we even met face to face, we decided to open up a studio together.
Oh
And
wow.
like 6 months later, we had Cream, we had the studio, we were like already working. So don't recommend doing that, but like like get to know who you're working with. But we got very lucky. Dave's amazing, and we all work really well together.
Yeah, it's tough to like just jump in, but sometimes it's the best way to do it. I mean, I know it's not what you're recommending, but I think sometimes we found the same thing is like you find somebody and right off you're like, let's just try this. And if it doesn't
Yeah.
work, it doesn't work. But like
You got to get lucky though with the person
True.
because especially with 3 owners,
Yeah.
everybody has different ideas, different opinions, the way the business runs, and it's tough to be running a business with 3. I don't know what your if it's 33.3 whatever all the way
Yeah.
through 50/50. So it's tough to run a business like that if someone has a different idea the way that you do or something.
Totally. And we've had it before. I mean, it was harder in the beginning because we were trying to figure everything out and also trying to grow up as people, we were just kind of like young and dumb. And, we're still dumb, but you have those humbling moments like every day where you're like, oh, man, like, I can't believe I didn't know that before. But that's the kind of the beauty of being in this business. You have to be good at learning. You have to be good at acclimating and pivoting and figuring things out, whether it's a new technology or a new way of like a new focus that you have to just pivot to. And this year's, it's really interesting in that way where we're all kind of doing the same thing. Like, should I be focusing on this one thing on like longer form, um, like marketing and advertising pieces, or should they be like 5-second, Instagram reels, like for these like quicker product lines? So it's harder to figure that out. But again, you're always going to have those challenges. It never gets easier. It's
No.
like
Yeah.
it hasn't for us. It's just the stakes get higher and higher, and you have to think bigger. But you have to exercise those muscles, I think, in your brain.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't get easier, but I think that's also the fun of it. Like you have to like figure out how do I adapt and how do I change the plan and what are we to do next? And I guess with that long form, short form content, where do you think things are going and why do you think they're going that way? Are there a lot more things leaning towards long form, short form, especially in the animation world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's everybody's question right now. I think what a lot of folks are saying is that everything will be pivoting into like the web, like UX and UI, and like so if you can kind of integrate those things, learn Rive, learn what is the other one?
What's Rive?
Procreate. Oh, Rive
I
is
don't even know what that is.
it's a 2D animation app that's online,
Okay.
and everything that you create in it is usable like on the web. So
Cool.
before we were everybody was using Lottie, so you could create something in After Effects and then like transfer it kind of into Lottie, but there was no guarantee it's going to work. So there's a lot of finessing and back and forth. But with Rive, everything that you create is usable. So
That's
there's
cool.
that. But there's so much happening with AI that it's like everything's just going to be exponentially faster. I just think that everyone's going to be uncomfortable for a long time in terms
Yeah.
of speed, because there's no time to process the new information that we're getting every day, like the new apps, the new information, the new upgrades to like Midjourney or whatever
Yeah.
you're using. It's like as soon as you're onto something, as soon as you're learning it, it's like, oh, this one's 5 times faster, and now
The new
everyone's
thing
using
comes
this
out.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
So
tried to like dabble into some of that stuff, and it's wild. I mean, it's crazy, but like you said, it's like then the next thing comes out, and how do you keep up with all of it?
Yeah. So I think my answer to that is dive into something, because they're all going to have some sort of common denominator. And so don't let it stop you from learning it just because the tool might change or whatever. You're going to learn prompt engineering at the very least. And that I think is going to be probably the most important thing for creators, is learning how to prompt engineer
Mm,
uh, the best outcomes the fastest. So there are cheat sheets, there are tons of things out there that will help. But right now, I mean, even like using Midjourney or Dolly or whatever for mood boards or for pitches, there's still a lot of finessing to get it to where you're
yeah.
happy with it. So I think the speed, like everybody's going to be using these kinds of tools, but the speed to get it closer to what you want it to look like, that's the craft now. And we need the language to support that. And if we want that, then we have to have a better lexicon, which that's where the Creative Codex comes in. So if you want to
Mm.
naturally transition to that, then we can.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, a lot of this stuff is slightly over my head, I would say, because I'm not really like, I love tech and I love learning about these new things, but ultimately, like, cameras are my thing. And like, when I start looking into these tech things, it's cool, but it's like prompt engineering. I never even thought about that, but that's true. It's like, if you can start to learn how to prompt these programs, you can get ahead of the curve.
Yes, absolutely. Because even now, like even Photoshop has it to where you have the generative AI to where you
Crazy.
can have, like I'll just upload a picture of my face or someone else's face, and then you just, select this area on the outside, and then all of a sudden you just type something in and it will create a Renaissance portrait for you if that's what you're typing in. But you have
It's
to know
wild.
what to do, right? So that kind of, and to give you some credit, I don't know anything about cameras. So,
Sweet. All right. So I
so
got that
like,
going for me.
yeah, we have like
We're safe.
it's a
We're
level
safe.
playing field right now. Yeah.
Cool.
But in terms of the Creative Codex, so that is an idea that came, I think it's just the zeitgeist of like where the industry has been and like the common complaints. Again, the hodgepodge um, of industries that created motion design, there were a lot of overlapping terms and then terms that kind of took on their own meaning, but they also meant 5 different things and different niches, creative niches. So that's really annoying, to put it lightly, because, and it's not just for the creator, it's annoying for the client and for the team and everyone, because you have to be talking about the same thing right off the bat. It's just a big time waster. And so the Creative Codex is an effort from a ton of different studios, Cream included, as well as individual like freelance artists and audio engineers and so on, kind of coming together and reestablishing a, a proper lexicon for the creative industry and saying, okay, we're going to poll everyone basically and get everyone's feedback on certain terms. And then if those terms don't feel quite right, people will submit tweaks or edits. And then the ones that are accepted get posted, and then whoever submitted the edit gets credit for that. So that will be like their legacy for motion design and other industries as well. So we're going to start with motion design and kind of go into the other fields as well. So it will really help us just in terms of communicating with each other, communicating with our clients, with our teams, but also communicating with AI tools to better support faster and more accurate results for what we're trying to create.
So is this a platform?
Yes, if you go to the creativecodex.co, let me just
Cool.
check that really quick before I tell you.
Yeah,
It might,
that's
you know what?
cool.
It's creativecodex.co. That's what it is.
Okay.
Not so no the. But
Okay.
right now it's just a landing page, but we've got different phases of launching, and so we're planning on launching the phase 2 site where you'll actually have all of the terms or the majority of the terms ready for review in 2024. And then from there, we'll have more downloadable resources for all kinds of different creative niches. And I think it's going to be the gold standard. We already have colleges and universities that are interested in using it for their curriculum. So it's a big deal. And we're
That's
really,
awesome.
really excited that we get to give back to our own industry. I mean, there's no money being had here. It's all
Yeah.
free. It's for our community. So it's something that everybody's feeling very good about to help, eschew everything along in the way that we can control it instead of just kind of letting it organically happen. It never goes right that way.
Yeah, so the
Never.
platform is right now just for animators and that kind of thing at the moment, and it's to learn more of the like what's going on in the world of animation. Is that kind of what
Sort
it
of.
is?
So it's basically going to be a dictionary,
Hmm.
like a dictionary resource that like redefines these terms that are being used incorrectly. And so first, it will be a dictionary for the creative industry. We're going to start with motion design first, and then we also have audio engineering in there, like any sort of um, related field. There's going to be production in there within the phase 2 launch as well, but we're going to be going deeper into those creative niches so that we're representing everyone as best we can. And we'll have like industry icons that are being pulled in for those specific niches. So it's not like the motion design crew is going to be doing the production stuff. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to best represent with the heavy hitters as much as possible. But after they submit their definitions for all of these terms, then the community can come out and say, oh, no, we actually think that needs to tweak a little bit or be tweaked. And then they can submit those edits.
I get
So
it.
so it will kind of start out as a dictionary. It will kind of go into a little bit more of like an encyclopedia as well, where there's like how-tos and like a little bit more context and information, along with downloadable resources for processes or processes. If you want to be that guy, I'm that guy sometimes. I say processes. But it's going to be just a gold standard resource for people who are just starting out or people who have been in the business for a long time and just need like a truth, like I need to
Yeah.
know what it actually is instead of Googling it and getting a million different hits on 10 different definitions.
That's a great idea. So it's like a Reddit/Quora for, or is that not correct? It's kind of like a
It's
place where people can upvote and like edit what things people are saying in order to
yes.
make sure that it's the top result.
I think that the way that they were first pitching it is it's more like a wiki to where
Okay.
it's community. But yes, there's going to be like a voting um, structure, but I'm not 100% on how that's going to work right at the moment. There's like a team of
Yeah.
like, I think 20 of us
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
meet biweekly, and on top of running a studio and everything else, we're doing these things. So it is
Yeah.
a lot, and I give everyone so much credit because it's hard to make it. But people, I'll say, Hung and Ricardo at BN are crushing it. Their whole studio is a big part of this initiative, so they get a lot of credit for pulling this together.
Well, if you ever need any other film insights, we'll happily jump
I love
on.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
for
love
sure.
it. We'll pull you in when we're ready. We got to do a bunch of other stuff first, but yes, yes,
It's all
thank you so
good.
much for offering.
Yeah, it sounds fun. It sounds cool to be able to like develop that because I know what you mean. You like Google something, you're like, well, I don't know, is this what that is? And like you end up spending
Yeah.
like 2 hours trying to figure out like, especially for people that are just starting out or like in college, they're like, well, what is this? And how do I do this? And this will
Well,
help,
and
hopefully.
sometimes they're getting wrong, they're getting old information, or
Mm.
maybe it's just like slightly off, and so then they're being taught this and then they're carrying it over into whatever workplaces they're going to. So we thought, you know what, we're the ones that are actually in the trenches here working. Um, and so no offense to any professor or anything like that. It's not, it's just more like we should be the ones to establish what this is called because
Hmm.
we're the most relevant resource at the moment. And when I say we, I just mean like all studios. Um, but then there's that opportunity for people to say, oh, no, like that's not it. Like you guys thought you knew what it was, but not really. And so then we can kind of work with the community to craft what these definitions are for everyone. So it's like we're trying to do the hard work, but if we get it wrong, there's that opportunity for edits.
Yeah. Um, maybe just we'll maybe just move around a little bit here.
Sure.
Um, how do you think Cream Studios has helped you adapt your creative process or like change the way that you do things?
Oh, it has helped tremendously because I think my own personal creative process is a mess. Um, and maybe that's just everyone's creative process, like I've seen like the graph before where it's like, like this is shit, I'm shit. Maybe this isn't
Yeah.
so bad. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, that's it.
I
But
think that's
like,
part of being in the creative world is like, it's like, I
yeah,
always think of like crumpling up paper and like throwing it in the trash can. It's like, that happens all the time. I write notes down and I'm like, that's stupid. This is stupid. And
yes,
you never
I'm
know.
stupid. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's stupid. Yeah. And totally. I think what Cream has helped me to do is Uh, just first of all, lean on my partners and just get a gut check. Like, is this right? How bad is this? How
How
good is
bad?
this? And so that has been really helpful. It's also forced us, each of us, to have a united process that we can present as our own, as creams, instead of just like, well, this is how I do it and this is how Dave or Ruth does it. Now it's like, no, this is how we should all be doing it. And roughly that is what we try to do. But, every project's different and every project budget is different too. And so you don't have time for every phase that you would love to have. Sometimes you just have to go with bare bones because that's what the client can afford, or that's what the deadline can afford. So yeah, but I think it has really helped us um, to kind of figure things out quicker and just get better at understanding that the creative process is not easy. It is
Mm-mm.
always, it doesn't matter how excited you are. It's almost the opposite. It's like if you're super excited about this project, it's going to be really hard. You're going to hate it at some point because you invest so much of your your mind and your soul and your creativity into it, it becomes precious in a way. And then inevitably, even if you're the creative director, you're going to be challenged with either that's not possible with the budget, or your client doesn't like it. It doesn't serve their needs. You're like, so you have to learn how to become less precious with ideas, and how to communicate better with your client so that they can understand the creative input that's going into it, and like what that does for their viewers, if anything, and then they can communicate to you like what they believe their clients or their viewers want. So there's like there's a lot to learn, I think, when it comes to process. But yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not only are you being like creative too, but you're also kind of helping them with their marketing as well. Is that
Yeah,
kind of, yeah?
totally. Yes and no. So it just depends. Some clients know exactly what they need from us,
Yeah.
and they're like, you can tell like they went to school for marketing and they're like, we got this. Like, we don't need your help.
Yeah.
But then some will come to us and they just trust us. They want us to make something beautiful, memorable, something like heartfelt, or like to pull an emotion out of their audience, usually for digital, like, or not even digital events, but like events. Those are the ones where I think we shine the most because we get the most trust out of our clients. They're just like, you do your thing.
Yeah.
And like at that point, man, we just roll up our sleeves and we're like, okay, like and then each of us will have a vision. I think that's probably our most seamless process so far, because we just kind of follow our gut and what we would want to see. But when it comes to things that are living online, like promotions and things like that, I'd say 50% of the time, clients already know exactly what they need, what they want, but they might need help with the hook, or that 6-second mark where like you got to have them in. But there's things to learn from each client too. So we can't ever feel like we know more than they do. We always have to be like collaborating and working together, and trusting them as much as they try to trust us,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always like a different process per client too. Like you said, some of them know a lot more about exactly what they want, and others are like, show us the best way to do this. I mean,
Yeah.
how often do you get somebody that just like asks for you to basically create the whole thing from scratch? Like they're like, we want something great, but we don't know what it is.
It's a friggin' dream when it happens. It usually, I would say like maybe twice a year. It just depends on the year. But right now I'm working on one, and I feel like, so I won't say who the client is because it's probably not a big deal, but like they were present at the Adobe Max speech. They were like in the room. And then he came up to me afterwards and was talking, and he was like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. It's for an event. It's going to be in Vegas. I just want you to like do whatever. And I was like, okay.
It's not
So
the Super Bowl, is it?
No,
I'm just kidding.
no,
Not going to put you on the spot.
no, not the Super Bowl, but it's like just a very heartfelt opener, animated opener. And so we were able to write the script, and we were able to kind of create what this thing is going to look like. And it has been the easiest like process so far with this client, because he trusts us and he's really genuinely happy with everything that we've put in front of him so far. And he's had pushback, of course, like, I think this needs to change a little bit. But I think the enthusiasm and the trust, like, if you can just feel that it's just really fertile ground for creativity, I think, to trust each other and to lean on each other. And you're not having this, my idea versus yours. It's like, okay, let's create something together.
Yeah.
Because he's the subject matter expert and I'm the, creation expert. Like, all we have to do is just work together instead of fighting. And so often I think sometimes clients can be that way, sometimes artists can be that way, or even studios. So yeah, when it doesn't feel like a competition for whoever's idea can rise above, it just feels like true collaboration. Man, you can't really beat it, I don't think.
It's the best because someone's going to win. And if you work together, it's like you guys both created this thing, so you both love it. But
Yes.
when you don't, it's like, damn, I don't like it because she won it. You know what I mean? She did her
Right.
thing. And yeah.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think it
hard
could come
to.
down to like the way that people communicate with each other too. Like sometimes you can, not to say like manipulate people, because that's the opposite of what you should be doing when you're trying to collaborate. But there's ways that you can present feedback so that it doesn't seem like you're being a jerk. It just seems
Yeah.
like you're trying to support what they're trying to do and acknowledge their effort, but say like, it could be something like this. What do you think about that? And just so it doesn't have to be like, no, I don't think
Yeah.
so.
I think it's hard too, because if you create that one-way street of like, no, this isn't a good idea, it's like you find this place of like hardship between the client and the studio, and it's like you're not going to get the best product out of that because now you don't want to budge because of such and such, and they don't want this because of that, and it's
Yeah.
hard to get that really good product. And it does seem like
It's on the other side too. You know what I mean? When
right.
you're the client, you got to think both ways because with us being the video people, it's like, they'll ask us to do something or whatever. And we're like, we really know that that's not the way to go or what to do. But again, you got to explain it to them in a way where it's like, they're not, we know you don't understand this space, but this is,
Sure.
what
Yeah.
would be better.
And the worst
Yeah.
is when something, whether it's your studio or the client, decides like, we're not going to budge on this. Like, this is it. And sometimes it makes sense for certain things. But other times, like, I'll give a quick example. During COVID, we did a virtual production, and one of the people that was helping regulate everything and sort of like direct it was virtual. So they weren't there. And they really wanted us to film weird angles of these interviews. Like one of them, they wanted us like sitting on the ground for a second angle, and they wanted more headroom. And they weren't really the production team. They were just like the marketing creative. And we're like, usually in film, like this doesn't look good. Like this is kind of a weird angle to film people from underneath their chin, especially if it's just a corporate thing. And they like stuck to it. And we never heard from that client again because I think they may have had us film it the wrong way. And now this client just doesn't want to do anything with us anymore because they think maybe we made the call.
Oh, they were the middle person. Yeah.
Yeah. So
making that call. Yeah.
We were like the hired gun for this. And then there's a possibility, I don't know if it's true, but there's a possibility the client is like, I don't really like their work. They did that crazy interview shot like from under their chin.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, there's things that we've been around for a while. So like we've done it on the extreme on both sides where we will be a stick in the mud and we'll be like, no, we just can't do it. And then we've had the other ones where we just like compromise just to appease them, but it looks terrible, and then that work is out there and it's got your name on it. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it because you can't put a disclaimer, and to everyone that watches it, like we wanted to do it differently, So I think it just comes down to communication from the beginning. And what we've learned is when we were first starting out, when we had clients that knew that we were cheap because we were new, we were like new and young and like, just give us any of your work. We'll do anything. Eventually you have to outgrow them because they don't have the budgets that are going to work for a larger team. And they get used to you accommodating everything. And you have to kind of work out of those bad habits. Some clients are really open to evolving with you, but those are rare, it's just harder to do. So I think the clients that we just love working with the most are the clients that love working with us the most, the ones who are excited. They're like, we just can't wait to work with you guys again. It's like, I mean, what a thrill that is to be
Yeah.
able to make each other happy all the time. And then you have some clients that are coming to you. You could just tell they're going to you because they don't have their A team. You know, you're like, all right, well, I guess this is what we're doing. But you can't take offense to it. You just kind of have to know that you're not going to be the right fit for every single client. You're the right fit for a certain bucket of clients. And those are the ones that you should always strive for. But it takes a long time to find them, especially in this market right
Yeah, it
now.
does. And I think
Yeah.
it's tough too because like you see maybe another studio do something, you're like, oh man, why didn't we get that? Or like, I wish we could have done that. And like, it's not all is lost. It's just like maybe they were in the right place, right time, or whatever. That was their chance, and you'll get your chance. And I think
Oh
everybody's
yeah.
like so upset they didn't get the job, or they want to get the bigger job because they want to film this, or they want to create the next trailer for this. And I
Yeah.
think it's like it's hard to watch other people succeed in your space, but it's also like empowering because you're like, oh wow, they did something super cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited for our team to get to that level, or like, hey, let's take that as inspiration. Let's move to the next level.
Yeah. And I think you have to be. Otherwise, you're just going to be like mad all the time, you know? And
Right.
it does suck when you lose a pitch. I mean, we lose pitches just as much as everybody else does. And it's, it's a punch to the gut. But you just have to realize that there was an old Oprah episode like a long time ago with this one guy who talked about dating. And I forget his name, but like he really opened up women's eyes everywhere. They were like, "Oh, it's like that," because the whole purpose of this episode was like, women, you are too sensitive. When a guy doesn't like you, like get over it. It's not a big deal if he doesn't call you, right? So this guy was just like, he's just not that into you. Like, haven't you just not been that into somebody? And it was like, that was the button where all these women were like, oh, like, I don't have to cry myself to sleep every night because he didn't call back. It's the same thing with pitches. You don't have to like go into a hole and think that, you're not worth anything. They just liked someone's a little better than yours, or they
Yeah.
knew that team a little better than they know yours, but like keep on fighting and don't give up. And it will be your time at some point. You just have to keep working towards it.
Yeah, or like look to a different space or try and find something similar, like find a company that does something similar and see if you could pitch the idea to them, or like change the pitch a little bit and go after a different niche in that space. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not, I mean, we do that too, where maybe we don't win something. We're like, oh man, but we try and find like, is there somebody else that would want to do this project? Maybe it would be
Hmm.
like on a smaller scale, or maybe we'd have to change it a little bit, but we could still do the thing. And so we
Yeah.
sometimes will recycle that idea and like change it for somebody that might want it.
I like that. That's really
Yeah.
smart.
I don't
There's
know
my
if you ever,
husband. Welcome to my
uh,
home.
do you ever do that at all with Cream
You
Studios? Have you ever
know,
like taken a project and you're like, we really loved this idea and we wanted to do it and it didn't get approved. So now we're going to try and shop it somewhere else.
yes, we've done that a couple times with different levels of success. One of the things that we did, it's very old at this point, but it was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we had this idea, and we had a radiology client of ours when we were first starting out. And we were like, hey, breast cancer awareness is coming up. Like, we want to do this, this, and this. We have this weird script. It's kind of fun and interesting. And they waited on it for so long that they were just, it was past it was past October. So we were like, okay, we're going to do this on our own. It was our idea anyway. We didn't have any contract with them. So we did it ourselves and we loved it. It was so much fun to create. Um, it was like a play on words of like what everybody calls their, breasts. And so there was like cans and sweater puppies and all the
I've never heard
inappropriate
that one.
missiles and yeah. And so jugs. And anyway, Hooters, you have to see it. There's like real owls and things like that we got to shoot, and it was all stop motion. And so later on, we ended up pitching it to Susan G. Komen, and they loved it, and so they signed on for it. And that was like years later when we approached them. So it does work out, but it just depends. It just depends. Like we've never gotten like super lucky or anything like that, but we haven't put a ton of effort into it either.
How do you guys pitch to other companies? Like, do you look at their stuff and say, "Hey, we got a great idea for you"? Do you wait for them to reach out to you? How does that process work in animation?
Good idea, or a good question. Yeah, I think that I would say most of the time, agencies or clients, they already have an RFP and they are approaching studios. However, it is good practice if you have clients that have something that they do every single year and they send out an RFP to the same studios or whatever, beat them to the punch and just start pitching them some ideas for next year so that they don't have to have an RFP, then they can just come to you. So I would say typically it's, definitely one-sided to where they already have the budget and all of that. But every once in a while, like with our closer clients, we'll pitch an idea out, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's great, thanks." And then they, they really have to I think for agencies especially, they have to feel like they contributed to the idea in order to sell it, because they're there to be creative. They're there. That's what their job is. So I don't think that they necessarily like it when studios pitch to them. But brands, I would say you're going to have way more luck with direct brands.
Yeah,
and I think that's a great idea too. My bad, Sean, but I think that's a great idea. If they're doing something every year, beat them to the punch and give them some ideas. That's really smart.
Yeah, I think we've found that too. It's like sometimes when you pitch like a cold pitch, they're like, "Oh, that's cool. If we would have thought of that, we would have done it. So move along." And you're like, "Oh, sweet. I thought it was really good."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's when you do make those, like you guys made the breast cancer one. When you're so excited about that idea that you did, you're like, "Oh, let's just do it," and pitch it to someone else or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And it was really rewarding in a lot of different ways, because we had like one of the women who came to let us borrow her puppies. I wasn't joking when I said sweater puppies. We had little sweaters knitted for these puppies. Anyway, she called us the day that the piece launched for breast cancer awareness, and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to say thank you. It was a great reminder for me to go get an exam, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer."
Wow.
And yes, and she said we caught it early enough, and so we have a treatment plan and everything. But that was the day that it launched. We were celebrating the launch. We were at a Mexican restaurant, and I got that call, and we were all in tears afterwards. We're like, "Oh my gosh!" So it's funny how the world works, but that was a very memorable experience for us.
That's incredible too, when like you do something and it also like helps somebody, whether it was like direct or indirect. It's cool when your creative process will then affect somebody in a positive way.
Yeah. I mean, just like one person made it all worth it for us all,
Totally.
because we invested our money in that too. We were very young studios. So we were like, "Oh, we don't know what this is going to do. Is this a stupid idea?" It was, because we were new, but we wanted to try something out. And that's when it hit us like, okay, advertising is powerful, because it can influence the way people think. It can encourage them to change their lives in a positive way and to take care of themselves. And we were so fortunate that happened, but also that she felt the need to tell us about it. Like that was just that moment where we're like, wow, that was super powerful for us. Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, and those are the ones that I think are really good too. It's a little more risky. It's you wouldn't really see it nowadays. You saw it back in the day in like Super Bowl commercials and beer commercials, stuff like that. Those are the commercials I think that hit and that people remember.
Yeah.
Because they're a little bit more risky, to do when you're talking about, boobs
Yeah.
and saying it in
We,
different ways.
yeah. Well, we did have a couple people that didn't like it, but then we
Right.
had a couple people, or not a couple, but we had a lot of people that loved it. And so you, especially with breast cancer or anything that has health associated with it, you're going to have people that love it or hate it or have strong feelings about it. We wished everyone loved it. But I think for a couple people out there, it was maybe insensitive to them. But the point of it was go get checked. Like whatever you call them, doesn't matter. Like go get checked because you still have them and you have to take care of them. And, it's just like any other form of creation. It's like some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but we got what we wanted out of it, and that was to make an impact and influence people's lives for the better.
Yeah, I think that going off of the some people hate it, some people love it, I think that stops some people from creating. They see like a bunch of people being like, this is not that good. You didn't do this the right way. We don't like it. Then people like stop creating. And it's sad when that happens because most of the time you're going to have both sides. Like you're never going to create something and people are going to be blown away and no one's going to say this was bad. There's always going to be the haters. You just got to
Sure.
kind of go with it, I think, if you want to evolve.
It just comes down to taste. Everybody's on this like life journey, and like we're all being influenced by outside, by our environment. And like no one's going to be the same. We all have different perspectives and different beliefs and all of that. And so that's the risk. You put it out there, that's the risk. It's no different than putting clothes on. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate your outfit, but you still have to choose one. You still got to make a decision. So
Yeah.
I think making those decisions too precious, they can cause analysis paralysis and just cause us to just kind of freeze up and question ourselves. But in order to get better, you have to keep experimenting and keep trying and learn what you like instead of focus on what everyone else likes,
Yeah. And now in the world of motion design and as a business owner, how do you find the purpose in like the things that you create? Like how do you find the way to create purpose and find like a meaningful way to do the work that you do?
Great question. I think that has a lot to do with like self-discovery, because when we were first starting out, I feel like I can speak for myself, but I think Dave and Ruth felt the same way. We just wanted to make the best work. We wanted to get better. We wanted to be known for how great our work was, how beautiful it was. And we've made some awesome things. We're really proud of them. But I think the older that we get, we start realizing it's less about the work and more about the people, and making sure that everyone's happy. And so, we still want to create the best work that we can. But in addition to that, what makes us feel like we are succeeding as business owners and succeeding as good humans is just making sure that we're all happy, we're putting good into the world, we're treating our clients right, that they're treating us right and our employees, that we're not a slave to our clients, so that there's no weird, I don't know, like just bad influence with them having the power over us and forcing us to make work that we really don't want to do. We just want to make sure that everybody is content with what they're putting out into the world, and also giving back and mentoring and supporting our industry and doing things that when we lay our head down at night, we go, yeah, that was pretty awesome. I helped that person, or I did that one thing and I know that's going to help something long term. So that kind of stuff, I think we have our ears out constantly looking for ways to impact the community in a positive way.
Yeah, I think it's cool to give back, whether it's just like a meeting with somebody that's just interested in your work, or like somebody who's just starting out in animation and visual creation, and you're like, this is how you should get started. And it's nice to like give that helping hand, because
Yeah.
ultimately like it will come back. Like at some point that stuff will circle back, and like it also just feels good to help people along the way, because I mean at one point you were looking for that, you know, like when you started out, like I know I was when I started out, it's like I don't know what I'm doing. And it was nice to
Yeah.
have those things and those people that reached out.
Even like when someone calls the studio and it's clear that they have no idea how animation works, they will definitely not be able to afford us. It happens often, you know, and people don't know. They don't know that we don't create animated birthday cards for families, you know, like, but that's what, you know, or, you know, a 5-minute character animation for $500. They don't know that. And it's not their fault. That's not their
Right.
fault. I think at first it was kind of like, ugh, you know, like, what are they thinking? It was like, well, they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? You know, and so like, I think instead of just having that attitude, just be a good human and pick up the phone and say, actually, this is kind of how it works. If you're looking for that, then I would call these people or I would try this. Give them help, because wouldn't you want the same thing if you called a mechanic or some, you know, some other
Exactly.
thing and you had no idea? Just give them the truth and they'll really appreciate it, and they will put the goodness out as well. So just that added effort, it just makes you feel good. It's exactly what you said. It makes you feel good when you get off the phone with them because they're grateful.
Yeah, that actually happened. I think it was during COVID, maybe right after. We had somebody that contacted us about creating a birthday video. And it
Yeah.
was just like with found footage for like in pictures of their friend. And I think it was like a 70-year-old birthday gift for one of their friends. And I was like, you know what? We'll do it. Like we did it.
Sweet,
It was, I
right?
know. And it was like, it was weird because it's like way outside. Like if anybody's hearing us, please don't contact us about that, because we don't actually do that. But like we were like, you know what? We have a little bit of time. It won't take
Yeah.
us that long. They were willing to pay a little bit. It wasn't crazy. And we helped them out. And I think it was nice. They loved it. And it was super simple. And it was simple
Yeah.
for us because like we know that space so well. So it was like, all right, it's going to take us very short time to do. But like ultimately, they're going to feel amazing afterwards when they have something that they can show their friend for their birthday. So
But
it was
also
cool.
keep, you know, that's something that
Yeah.
they'll have for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, yeah, it's nice to help, especially when you have the time. It's kind of like, well, what am I going to lose? You know,
Right.
when we're slower than usual, we'll take on projects that we wouldn't normally.
Totally.
Um, but you know, it keeps the lights on, but it's also like it gives um, other, you know, smaller clients an opportunity to work with a larger studio that they've never had before, and they get to have a new level of quality, you know, and they're like, wow, this is really, really cool. They get to kind of experience what a studio is like at a very different price point, because, you know, when you're slow, you're slow. So I think
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to experience that with them, and just, you know, like you can kind of be a teacher almost when you're on that journey. They're like, okay, like this is how the process goes, and they're like, okay, they kind of just do whatever because they're excited. And I
The good thing too is, my bad, that
no, go
the
ahead.
client's not going to want to go backwards. You know what I mean? Once they get that nice,
Right.
beautiful product that's up here that they usually would have got way down here, they're
Yeah,
going to stay that, you know?
yeah, and they're also like super grateful, and they're going to talk about you in a positive
Yeah.
light. And again, it's just kind of putting the goodness out whenever you can.
Yeah, it's nice to do that. And sometimes, like Dan said, like sometimes you'll get a client that will come back, or maybe they'll tell somebody else, like their friend, they'll be like, oh, their friend that owns like a bigger company. They'll say, hey,
Yeah.
there's this studio that's really great. They helped us out. You should check them out. And then all of a sudden you've got this like massive project, because like sometimes people ask us like, oh, how'd you get this? How'd you get that? Sometimes it's just with like being nice to people and like connecting with people and staying connected with people who jump other companies. Like they started here and now they're at this other company, and you'll end up
Hmm.
getting more projects just by being human and just being nice to other people.
I think a lot of people forget how important being human is when it comes to sales. Like, sales is all about trust, and like, a lot of people think of the old trope of being a used car salesman, and that's just a bad salesman. That's just like those are bad behaviors that nobody really
Yeah.
wants to have. You just have to be nice, and you have to listen, and you have to try to help in the ways that you can. You don't have to give them anything away. You don't have to do anything for free, even. Like, just listen to their problem, give them exactly the kinds of information that you would hope for. And, if you can, give them resources to where if you can't do the project yourself, then try to help them out, and they'll remember you. And just like what you said, we've had projects come in randomly where I'm like, whoa, how'd you hear about us? Oh, so and so that you spoke to, I guess a few months ago, they recommended that I talk to you. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that worked out. I'm glad that I took that call, or I'm glad that I said something nice or whatever. And yeah, it just has a way of coming back to you always.
Yeah, you never know. You literally never know what's going to happen. So it's always good to
Yeah,
just stay connected with people. And yeah, that's
just
something that I think,
be nice.
yeah, it's definitely something you learn along the way as you like move through like owning a company and building your clientele. You're like, oh, this is going to happen because I did this, and I'm going to be getting a better job here because I was nice to this person. So it all usually trickles down. It's nice to
hmm
see that it actually works.
Yeah, it might take a couple of years. Sometimes it
Yeah.
takes a while, but if you're not, like, I would say, like, don't do it to to expect something in return. I don't think that it works like that. It always smells of, you know, something. It's like, this is inauthentic.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're a genuine person, people like that. They gravitate towards that because they feel like, okay, they're going to be honest with me no matter what. I can trust them. And trust is like the commodity. That's like what, for every studio has a different price point, has a different process, has a different result. And so for a lot of clients, they're confused. They don't know what the difference is, and they just really want to know that they can trust that you're not going to overcharge them or go past their deadline, or, give them a piece of crap product at the very end. They want to just make sure that they can trust you.
Yeah. How hard do you think it is now versus like when you started to like there's so many things like new tech and there's all these companies popping up and people are working from their house in their basement and like there's a kid now down the street
Yeah.
that it's only 12 but can like do crazy filmmaking and animation stuff. It's like
Yeah.
how do you keep up and how do you keep the edge at Cream Studios?
Yeah. So I think the edge is, it's about like knowing what's out there, knowing the trends, like the visual trends, like what's going on, making sure that you stay relevant, not just as a creative director, but as a creative. You have to know what looks good, and how to make it if your team can't. And so, because we all started out as animators and designers, I think we still like dabble in there, and like we'll kind of get in there and play around and be like, okay, I actually want it to look more like this than what you gave me. And so if we need to, we can get in and kind of support our team in that way. But it's also about like learning your own value, so
Hmm.
that you don't get so discouraged when you see that 12-year-old that knows how to do all of these things that you just figured out last year. You're like, what the hell? Um, Age is important, because there's so many, you have a world of context that 12-year-old doesn't have, or whoever.
Right.
And it's easy to be like, "Oh, I'm getting old," or I haven't animated fully in this long, so am I becoming irrelevant? No, you have to lean into the things that help support your team and help support the end result. And that can be leadership, that can be communication. I try to read those types of books every once in a while to really kind of, like really help motivate my thinking, and help me realize like what I can give to the project. It's not always creative. Sometimes you have a team that is so creative and you're like, I'm not even needed. Like they're just on a roll. So you have to figure out like what's your value in every project. Sometimes you have to lead it from the ground up and it's got to be your vision all the way through. And sometimes it's kind of like, okay, they're so good that I feel like, what the heck can I even contribute? So yeah, kind of digging in and figuring that out definitely helps with confidence, and it helps you to stay closer as a team when you're through it, so that if you are that creative director that can't really contribute to this type of project, that you're not constantly injecting yourself into that project, disrupting the team, disrupting the good process that they have, just so that you can feel relevant. You know what I mean? Like you can feel needed. Sometimes you're not needed and sometimes you are really needed. You just have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's big in any production. It's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you see a lot of micromanaging, whether it's on set or like in a post-production studio, and you're like, what if you didn't do that? Maybe this would have grown into something else. And it is hard to like let go
Mm-hmm.
of a project or like let people have their space. But I think I've found that in a lot of projects, when you just let people have a little freedom and space, like they may go a different direction. You're like, wow, that's cool. This is something that I did
Yeah.
not think we could do. And now I see the possibilities. So it opens up more doors. And I think as a director or creative person, like you have to be able to do that. And if you can't, you got to work on that, because that's
Mm-hmm.
how the company will grow even bigger than it is.
And it's how you best support your team, because like no one wants to be micromanaged, and I'm guilty of it 100%. I've learned to kind of let go. But and it's all creative micromanaging that I would do. I'd be like, no, this is what I was thinking. And so like when I was first starting out in creative direction, I thought like, that's my role. It's supposed to be my vision, and it can't deviate from that. And the artists are my hands and they're going to be creating what's in my brain, but that's not it. It's impossible and it's unfair to put them in that position. You really have to allow them to have a vision of their own, and then you can kind of come together, but you have to allow them to be artists and to design things the way that their instinct tells them, unless it's just completely wrong for the project. You have to kind of support them and let them grow in that way.
Yeah. So for somebody starting out in this world of animation and visual creation, what would you tell them? They're like just starting out, they're excited, they're like, I don't know where to go. I know some of the basics. How does that person get the confidence and the inspiration to like start really getting out in the field and working?
Okay.
It could be anything. I mean,
So
anything simple too. It doesn't have to be anything
yeah,
crazy.
I would say first thing, like if you're just starting out, and you know that you need to improve on your animation skills or your design skills, like go to School of Motion, or there's a million different platforms, even Skillshare. I mean, Jake, anything on YouTube, really, and learn the basics of animation. Learn the principles of animation first, because a lot of motion designers, like old school motion designers, they didn't really learn the animation principles first. They were either editors or they were this or they were that. They were designers, but they didn't, you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
So it's really important to understand design and animation. And if you don't, then take a class that is not free, that so you can be accountable and you
Right.
have a timeline and you have to really work towards it. I would say you definitely do not have to go to college for this. I know I'm going to get like so much hate for saying that, but you don't. You do not. You don't.
Yeah, I
Your
feel that way for
resume
creative
is your
stuff.
portfolio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your portfolio and how you speak and how you um the kinds of work that you want to do, your enthusiasm, your kindness, that all matters when getting hired for one job or for a salaried job. It all matters, but not necessarily where you went to school, because it's just not important right now. Don't hate me.
No, I get
Um,
it. I think it's
yeah,
like people get caught up on that. And I mean, things are so like the barrier to entry, like the cost to enter the creative space, I think right now is like, it's very low compared to what it used to be. Like you can buy
so
a
low.
computer, you can like get a subscription to a service and be able to like start creating whether it's like graphic design or filmmaking or
Dude,
editing or animation. It's crazy.
Procreate, Procreate Dreams, amazing. Like these are like tablet apps, like $20. I think Dreams just came out a couple of days ago. So it's like so Procreate, do you know Procreate? It's like on the iPad. Okay.
I
It's
use
like,
Procreate. Yeah, it's
okay.
awesome.
It's
Unbelievable for
awesome.
an iPad app.
Right.
I need to get it, I
And
guess.
then, and so they just came out with Dreams, which is like cell animation. It's like frame by frame and with incredible results, really intuitive, kind of like Flash-esque, like old school, kind of,
Yeah,
but like not clunky. Anyway, um, and so that's $20, and I don't think you have to pay every year. I think it's like $20 one time.
that's awesome.
Unheard of, unbelievable, and you can create quality work for, for that amount of money. And that's what studios, I think, and larger agencies and big entities are like concerned about. Is like, you don't need this huge setup, like you used to. I don't know if you guys remember like Avid and like the whole
Yeah.
edit. Yeah. Like when you could start using, your, your laptop, your Apple laptop or whatever to edit, I think a lot of production studios were like, oh crap, and sure enough, like, production studios started breaking up into smaller bits. You didn't have to have like 30 or 40 people anymore. You could have, just a few. And that's what's probably going to happen more and more. But I think it's a good thing. It doesn't mean that there's less opportunity. It just means everything's changing and becoming a little bit more accessible for
Yeah.
everyone.
And I think there's different categories of opportunity too. Like it just
Yeah.
now opens up this other category for maybe it's like you said before, like smaller businesses that can't afford certain things. Now there's like all these options for them. Like they can get that animation for way less because there is somebody that's willing to do it, or they're just starting out and they're creating
Mm-hmm.
great stuff, but just at the start of their career. So they're able to do it for less. And so I think there's always going to be
Yeah.
more opportunity, and by having everybody have a camera on their phone, it's cool to see what people are able to create. I don't think it's something that you should be
Yeah.
concerned about.
Well, and not just that, but like also allowing people who don't work well with others or maybe look different, and they can't get hired, or maybe they have a disability, or, all of these barriers that might prevent someone from getting hired somewhere, they're dissolving. And that's really exciting because that gives them the ability to be the creative person that they were born to be without the need of relying on someone else approving you, because you look a certain way or because you sound a certain way, or your abilities. It's like these cheaper, more accessible programs are giving so many people uh, a way to thrive. And that's what we should all be rooting for. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I think
Yeah.
location is another big one too. It's like doesn't matter necessarily where you are anymore. Like you can edit from different places. You can create graphics from different, like anywhere around the world. Like it gives opportunity to a lot of different people that maybe didn't have access to certain things. It's like, it's
Yeah.
amazing. And you start getting to see like more stuff that you've never seen before. You're like, wow, this is amazing. This person over here is doing this crazy animation. I've never seen this technique before. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like it makes you appreciate the craft more and like find new ways to create because other people are pushing limits.
It's inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, oh, well, they can do it and I can do it. It gives us all permission to stop with the excuses. It's like, oh, okay, well, that guy in Kenya is doing this. I can guarantee my life is easier than his life. And so what are my hangups? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are my excuses? And,
Yeah.
there's some, and, to be honest, there's a lot of creativity happening in Africa right now. And I have a couple of folks that I check in with that have they're so inspiring. The lives that they live are just dramatically different from ours. And they are so creative and they want it more than we do. So
Yeah.
be on the lookout, like there are people all over the world that are now getting access to the same technology that we have. And it's not just Americans that are going to be, at the very top. It's really going to be a lot of creative people from third world countries, I believe, that want it way more, that they can outwork us, and they want it way more than we do, and they're just as creative, if not more creative. And they have a different flavor of their style or whatever it is, and so that's exciting. Like we need more looks out there. There's too much of the same, style happening over and over again. So I'm excited for what this new phase of our industry looks like.
Yeah. I think it's cool to see, I mean, experience and the way people live their lives differently will influence all this new creation that we see. And I think the tech, the AI, and all of that is helpful to
Hmm.
make it evolve too, which is cool. So,
And hearing
yeah.
their stories, like them telling their stories through animation or through production, getting some insight into their world, that just makes us all better. It makes us all appreciate each other on a different level. So, that's coming, and it's already happening, but I'm saying it's going to be happening more and more. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
No one's going to make any money in 2024, but we're going to have a hell of a lot of great stories coming.
A lot of cool stuff will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
We'll have
We've
a lot of
noticed
stuff
that
to watch
too.
on YouTube when we're not working.
Yeah, things were slow this year for sure. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting to see that it's across the board. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's just people shifting budgets or what's happening, but it's interesting to see that things have slowed down a little bit. But I mean, if you've been doing this for 10 years, it's ebbs and flows, it goes around.
Yeah. It will come back up. I'm interested to see like what focuses actually are more important next year. Because I think after or during COVID, it was all advertising, all marketing. It was all just product, 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 and services and things like that. Um, but the landscape is changing, and there are a lot of tools that are being developed and adopted within agencies and brands that are like our content creation tools. So it begs the question, like, well, are we going to be needed much longer? Like what level of creativity and creation do they need to employ at this point? So yeah, but it just opens up. So if that's gone, then this opens up. So there's all kinds of avenues. You have to like be aware of it and don't get stuck on the same stuff. There's always a window open that you have to be on the lookout for.
Yeah. It's like evolving with what's happening, not just like
Yeah.
trying to stick to the same thing that you've always done, because you have to adapt a little bit. I mean, that's just how things changed, especially in the creative world. If you
All
don't,
good businesses do, right?
yeah,
I mean, they all adapt. So, yeah, you just have to you don't have to like completely abandon everything that you've worked for, but you just have to find, okay, there's the opportunities there. How do I take everything that I've learned and everything that I'm good at, and everything that we built and like make it work with that opportunity? And then you create something unique and new. And that's what, then you reposition, and that's what people know you for. And you can be like the one studio that everybody is seeking out for that one thing. So that's a good place to be in. But right now everybody's kind of trying to figure out where that window is.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. And you guys, I take it, were slow as well.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. Dan and I
Yeah.
found our adventures this year. We got into some like hunting films. That's our new thing.
Nice.
And so we found ourselves hiking for miles upon miles in one of our productions, which was like kind of a last minute thing. I mean,
Huh.
it was crazy.
For what it was very last minute.
It
Yeah,
was insane.
but very
It's like-
cool.
Where,
Cool
where
experience.
was the shoot?
It was in Colorado.
Colorado.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sure you had some
Steamboat.
beautiful footage.
how many days was it, Dan?
It was supposed to be for 10, but I think we were out there for like 7 or 8, maybe.
Yeah. And we were
That's awesome.
hiking the whole time. And
Just up and down mountains. I mean, it was
brutal.
one of the hardest things I've physically ever done with cameras,
100%.
backpack gear, all that stuff.
Yeah.
What would you do
Tents,
differently
food.
next time?
Ooh.
Charge more?
We would find a charging solution better because we went out thinking we would have to camp for 10 days straight until he got an elk. We were on an elk hunt, but we brought like 40 batteries with us.
Yeah, we brought, because we didn't know. We've never been
Mhm.
like out in the middle of the woods with no power, like for days.
Yeah.
And we looked online. There weren't a lot of people that were talking about it. So we're like, I don't know how this is done and if anybody's ever done it this way. And so we brought a ton of batteries. And we actually, in the beginning of our hike, we dropped batteries in like a dry bag and left them on the trail and marked them. We're like, we'll come back for these because
Yeah, we'll come back in a week for
Wow.
these
It was that
things because
heavy.
it was just too heavy.
Yeah.
Were
Yeah.
they were there, I hope?
yeah,
Yeah, we got them
Okay.
back.
yeah,
Whew.
yeah. We like
Yeah.
hid them, kept them in a dry bag, and they were fine. But we were just like, we got ourselves into something. And I mean, it was
Man.
It's
really
cool,
good
though.
experience, and it was fun. And the film, we really liked the way it came out. And it probably won't launch till next year, which is too bad because we were hoping to do it sooner. But it's part of like their plan, the sponsors' plan to like launch it next year before elk season. So it was
Yeah.
fun. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So that was our big
Hmm.
push this year. But the rest of the year has been, it's been up and down, like some of the usual productions, but nothing like people, like some years it's been like crazy stuff. People want to do this and that and like go on trips and film this. And then this year, I think people reeled it in a little bit, but it's okay. I think we're
Yeah.
trying to evolve and figure out the next step.
Yeah. We just noticed budgets were like 50%, maybe even like 25% what they were the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I mean, we had plenty of projects that came in where we were like, did they miss a zero? Like, this can't be right. You know what I mean? If you have one project that you did this year where you're like, I loved the result, or I loved the process of creating it, or really enjoyed working with that client, or whatever it is, it's still a win, because it's like you have something to take away and to sell yourself with next year, or or the end of this year. But for a lot of studios, I mean, a lot of studios closed this year. Some agencies closed. Some were acquired. Some merged. There's a lot of big things happening. Mostly scary things, unprecedented things. And yes, we've been around for 10 years, but this year did feel different. where it was like, it's just not what we've encountered before. And we're pretty optimistic about what 2024 holds, but I don't think we're going to be back at like the numbers of 2021 anytime soon, unless there's a big shift or a pivot or finding that window of opportunity and kind of, capitalizing on it. But I think for a little while we're going to see a big dip in ad dollars and marketing spend. So that's just my belief.
We had some guy on who did VFX not too long ago, and it almost seemed like that was happening in his industry with like the movie industry,
Mm-hmm.
but he shifted into a whole different genre. They started doing
video games, I think.
Video games,
Mm-hmm.
cars, like they would go in, in the dash in the car, they would start, whatever, I don't even know what it's called,
Like the UI
but they'd create the UI
Mm-hmm.
for the car. Yeah. So it's like, you almost have to curve into these different, businesses and try to get them.
Have you ever thought about
And
getting into gaming or like that kind of space?
I'm interested in it. I love, this is probably too much information, but I love playing Fortnite. I know it's lame.
No, it's not lame. It's
to
cool.
play Fortnite,
I like playing video games.
It is like my favorite thing ever. And I just love that it's constantly evolving. And I don't know. It's kind of stupid, but I love it so much.
I like that you like playing video games. I think it's cool. I think more people are playing that are not just kids anymore, because it's a fun little release.
So let me tell you. So I just 2 days ago or 3 days ago bought a PlayStation 5. So I used to play all the time when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a console in like 20 years.
Yeah.
And then, because I'm like, damn, it's gonna ruin my marriage. Like, because I'm, I'll be playing all night.
Get your wife to play.
But my friends still had it.
Yeah.
My friends who are 35, 40, whatever, they're still playing video games. So I'm like, they finally got me to get one. And now I'm like, all I play is Call of Duty.
I've been looking
hooked
at the PS5s because I'm like,
my
wife and I play, actually. She likes to play some of the games that we have on our Xbox. We have the Xbox from like 2012. So like by the time it starts up, she's like, want to do something else? Like watch a movie? So maybe.
My wife would never.
Forever. Yeah, but you know what? We didn't start playing until like maybe 5 years ago.
It's awesome.
And like my son is 9, my daughter's 13. And so like Max has a PS4, Bella has a PS5. We, Adam and I in our bedroom, we have an Xbox One.
That's dangerous.
I know.
That's
but
awesome.
It's so much fun.
Log in together. You're like logging in. Let's go.
But it's like, I mean, we're all really competitive. My kids are awesome. Like they're so good at video games. And so like, if that's what you bond with, then who cares? Like, we also go outside to get like, we try to balance it out a little bit, but, I think it's great and we have fun and we're actually all really good. So if you ever want to play against us,
she's like, my KD is this.
Yeah. Just let me know. No, but I think if we had an opportunity to get into gaming, then, and it made sense, then heck yeah, we would definitely do it. I think, Project Avalanche, so Epic released, Unreal released, Project Avalanche, which is basically Cinema 4D and After Effects and like Premiere jammed into one. So and it's like real time rendering. I mean, it's kind of going to change everything. So there's so much going on out there. And with Unreal Engine and, what is it? MetaHuman? I'm saying everything wrong, but, all of the things that are being created by the gaming industry are just, making rendering so much faster and creating so much faster. It's just kind of a natural evolution into gaming too, because the tools are very similar. So, if we had an opportunity for that, I would be thrilled. And, Epic is in North Carolina and they're not too far away from us. So I would be into that if they ever wanted to, pull us in, although they have like 1 million, they have 1 million staff. So I don't think
but you never know. Like a lot of those companies, like they may have the staff to do it, but they need that like one-off project done.
The one thing that you're
Yeah,
known for.
maybe
That's
that's
true.
the window.
Gotta
That's
get
the
it.
window. You got to get in the window and start
That's
making
right.
gaming stuff. Maybe that's
I'll
it.
I'll butter them up by showing them like
How good at
my
gaming you are.
scores. Yeah, I'll be
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
see, I really know what I'm talking about.
You sure you don't want to work with me?
That's awesome. Yeah, you could challenge them to a
Uh,
game. If I beat you, then you have to sign
yeah,
the contract.
yeah, right. If I get to this level, please choose us.
That's awesome. Well, where do people find you nowadays, and like how can people keep up with what you're doing at Cream Studios?
So if they want to talk to me, the best way to reach me is probably LinkedIn. Just Amanda Russell, two S's, two L's. And same thing with Cream. If you want to reach out to Cream specifically, if you have a project or you want to talk to us about our process or whatever, you can reach out to us at hello@wearecream.com. And yeah, there's also our Instagram if you want to check that out. We Are Cream Studio. And then our website, our URL is wearecream.com. Did I give you enough
Awesome.
information?
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast.
My
This was
social security
awesome.
number is just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You guys are great. And I'm excited to see when the Colorado shoot launches. I want
I
to
know.
see. Please send that to me. I want to take a
See
look.
what we went through.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited too. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah, thanks
cool.
again for having me. This has been great. And yeah, thanks for going through all the stories with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you.